No light, no voice. The hidden reality of solitary confinement. Before we begin, if you survived this story without losing your mind, hit subscribe, drop a like, and comment your thought below, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. The night the investigation began, rain hammered the cracked pavement outside Rockford State Penitentiary, turning the yard into a slick field of mud and shadows. The prison usually swallowed sound, but tonight something felt different. Electric, wrong, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. At 2:13 a.m., a correctional officer radioed a frantic message. An inmate was missing. Not escaped, not transferred. Missing from solitary confinement, the most heavily monitored wing in the facility. That inmate was Marcus Hale, a man whose file was nearly empty except for a decade of survival in near total isolation. He wasn't violent, wasn't affiliated with gangs, and wasn't known for causing trouble. His crime had been small compared to the monsters housed around him. A burglary gone wrong, no injuries, no weapons. Yet he had been placed in solitary confinement for years, long past any disciplinary justification. No one questioned it. No one reviewed it. He simply stayed there, swallowed by the system. Detective Evelyn Cross, called in as a neutral investigator, arrived minutes after the report. She stood in the icy hallway outside Cell 6B, staring at the impossible sight before her. The steel door had no signs of tampering. The lock was intact. The surveillance feed showed nothing except darkness, as if the camera had been intentionally disabled right before Marcus vanished. Inside the cell, everything was as it always was. A cot, a metal sink, a toilet, and a Bible worn down to its spine. No window, no vents large enough for a mouse. Just cold concrete and silence. And yet Marcus was gone. Cross knelt beside the cot and noticed something the guards had missed. Faint scratches etched into the floor. Not random marks. Lines. Shapes. The beginning of symbols she didn't yet understand. She brushed her fingers over the grooves, feeling how recently they had been carved. Behind her, Warden Cole waited, arms crossed, jaw tight. "This is what I warned them about," he muttered. "A man locked away too long. Something snaps." Cross didn't respond. She had seen snap minds before. This didn't look like chaos. It looked like a message. A plan. As she continued examining the cell, a file box was brought to her. Marcus Hale's disciplinary reports. She flipped through them quickly and frowned. 90% of the reports were for things that made no sense. Excessive eye contact, improper placement of personal items, failure to remain still during inspection. It was as if someone wanted excuses, flimsy ones, to keep him buried in isolation indefinitely. She turned the page. One document was different. A single note written by a former guard who had quit years ago. "Inmate Hale says he knows something. Says someone here is hiding the truth. Says solitary is the price for silence." The signature was blacked out. Cross looked up. "Warden, why wasn't this in the formal file?" Cole hesitated. "People say things in here." Guards, "Inmates, it's better not to feed into rumors." "But hiding it?" she asked. He didn't answer. Cross stepped out of the cell and into the surveillance room. The footage of the previous 12 hours was corrupt, a digital smear of static. Only one frame was clear. Marcus sitting on his bunk, staring at the camera, hands folded, calm. Behind him, the wall was clean. Cross froze the image, enhanced it, and something made her chest tighten. In the real cell, she had seen fresh scratches on the floor, but in this frame, they weren't there, which meant Marcus carved them after the footage cut out. On a hunch, she returned to cell 6B, crouched again, and angled her flashlight. When the beam hit the scratches, the lines formed a pattern, not symbols, but arrows. Arrows pointing toward the far corner of the room. She pressed her palm against the wall. Hollow. A chill crept down her spine. "This wasn't a disappearance," she whispered. "This was a warning." She knocked twice. A deep echo answered. Something was behind this wall. Something the prison had never intended anyone to find. And when the maintenance crew arrived moments later and began breaking the concrete apart, dust filled the air. The crack widened. A dark void appeared. A space no one knew existed. A space not on any blueprint. The foreman stepped back. Cross leaned forward, heart pounding. Inside the hidden chamber was a small metal box. But what was inside it made her stagger, because the box held proof that Marcus Hale wasn't the only inmate who had vanished from solitary confinement. And one of the names inside was still alive. Detective Evelyn Cross stared at the rusted metal box as if it were a live explosive. The air in the hidden chamber felt colder, heavier, as though the walls themselves were bracing for what she might uncover. She slipped on gloves, lifted the lid, and the hinges squealed like something waking from decades of sleep. Inside were folders, old, yellowed, edges curled, each stamped with an inmate number. But it was the dates that made her blood pressure climb. Disappearances spanning 15 years, all from the same solitary wing, all classified as administrative transfers that had never actually occurred. The last file in the stack bore a name she recognized instantly: Arthur Cetewayo Johnson, a prisoner known for surviving decades of wrongful isolation, a man who had sued the state, won, and been quietly transferred out of Rockford. His file shouldn't have been here. Nothing about this made sense. Cross quickly flipped through the documents. Each one contained the same disturbing pattern. Inmates who had little or no discipline issues. Inmates whose isolation made no procedural sense. Inmates who had hinted, in scribbled notes or desperate reports, that they knew something or had seen something inside solitary confinement the night the lights flickered. Pages crackled beneath her fingertips. A final section caught her eye. Photographs, grainy black and white, taken inside the solitary wing's darkest corners. The images showed what looked like construction patches, sealed vents, and what appeared to be small access doors that no one had reported during routine inspections. One photo was labeled simply, 6B before. Cross's stomach tightened. Before what? She slipped the folder into her bag and stepped out of the chamber. The maintenance workers filled the hallway with the buzz of tools and muttered worry. Warden Cole hovered nearby, his posture rigid. "Find something?" he asked. Cross met his gaze. "Enough to open an investigation into your entire solitary operations unit." His jaw twitched. "You're overreaching." "No," she said calmly. "I'm not reaching nearly far enough." Before Cole could respond, a correctional officer rushed toward them, breathless. "Detective, you need to see this. Surveillance feed just came back online." Cross followed him to the control room. The monitors flickered with static, but one camera, the hallway leading to cell 6B, stabilized. The feed showed the corridor moments after Marcus Hale vanished. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then something moved. A shadow crossed the camera's field of view, not an inmate, not an officer. It wasn't a person at all. It was a shape, low to the ground, fast, slipping along the edge of the wall as if following a track. The camera glitched at the exact moment it approached Marcus's door. Cross replayed it, slowed it. The shadow wasn't natural. It appeared mechanical, with sharp angles, reflecting light in a pattern she recognized from covert surveillance tech used in high-security federal facilities. A crawling device, a machine designed to enter tight spaces. "Warden," Cross said quietly, "why would a device like this be inside your solitary wing?" "I don't know what that is," Cole replied, defensive now. "You expect me to believe that?" Cole didn't answer. His silence said more than any confession. Cross turned back to the footage. A timestamp flashed. 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 14 seconds. Exactly 6 minutes before Marcus disappeared. The machine's movement wasn't random. It stopped directly over the point where Cross had discovered the hollow wall. Something or someone had accessed that chamber long before she did. Cross's phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. Against instinct, she answered. A voice whispered, trembling and strained, "Detective Cross, you don't know what they're doing here." "Who is this?" she demanded. "They watched him. They watched all of us. Solitary isn't punishment. It's a filter." The caller's breath hitched. "Marcus told me they were coming for him. He said if the cameras went dark, it meant they were testing the system again." "Where are you?" Cross asked. A pause. Then the voice broke. "Inside. Still inside." The call ended. Cross exhaled sharply. Someone was alive inside the building who wasn't supposed to be. Someone who knew too much. She stormed back to the hidden chamber opening. "We need to see what else is back there," she told the foreman. "We already checked," he replied. "There's nothing but the box." Cross swept her flashlight across the walls of the secret room. Dust swirled. Cobwebs hung like curtains. But then she saw it. Faint markings on the concrete behind the box's original position. Scratch marks. Words. She stepped closer, reading each line as her pulse hammered. He found the other door. "They move people through the walls. If you're reading this, run." Cross felt the temperature drop, because behind the markings, the concrete had a seam. Another wall. Another hidden passage. And someone, or something, had opened it recently. Detective Evelyn Cross pressed her palm against the cold seam in the concrete, feeling the faint vibration behind it. Not mechanical, not electrical, but rhythmic, as if something was moving on the other side. She signaled the maintenance foreman to bring the tools. Within minutes, chisel struck stone, dust clouded the air, and the hidden wall groaned open like a tomb door forced awake after decades of silence. A narrow passage stretched into darkness, the floor coated with a thin trail of marks that looked disturbingly fresh. Cross crouched and traced the pattern with her glove. Not footprints. Drag marks. Recently made. Warden Cole stood behind her, arms crossed tight, his face pale. "Detective, this is beyond protocol." "No," Cross replied. "This is evidence." She stepped inside, her flashlight cutting through the stale shadows. The air was damp, tinged with the metallic scent of old steel and something else. Fear, trapped and distilled over years. Pipes lined the ceiling, and every 20 steps the tunnel split into small compartments outfitted with barred openings barely large enough for a human body. Some were empty, some held chains. Cross felt a pit open in her stomach. These weren't storage rooms. They were holding cells. She approached the farthest cage, where something glinted from the floor. A torn ID badge. She lifted it. The name punched the air out of her lungs. Marcus Hale. Behind her, the warden shifted nervously. "Detective, these are historical structures. Old parts of the prison never used." "Don't lie to me," she snapped. "Someone used this recently." Before Cole could respond, a noise echoed from deeper in the passage. Metal scraping. A whisper of movement. Cross drew her weapon and advanced, each step steady despite the adrenaline humming in her veins. The noise came again, a quick shuffle, then silence. She turned a corner and froze. A figure stood at the end of the corridor, thin, trembling, his clothes filthy and torn as if he'd been hidden away for weeks. His eyes were wide, reflecting her flashlight like an animal cornered in the dark. When he spoke, his voice cracked from disuse. "Detective Cross." Her pulse spiked. "Marcus." He nodded weakly. He was alive, barely. His wrists were bruised. His lips were cracked. But he was standing. "They said you were gone," Cross whispered. Cole reported a suicide attempt, then a medical transfer. Marcus shook his head violently. "No transfer. No doctors. They took me when the lights went out. They said I knew too much. I tried to tell people what I heard in solitary, what they were doing to inmates who asked questions." Cross stepped closer, lowering her weapon. "What happened in that wing? What did you see?" Marcus swallowed, gathering strength. "Not everyone who goes into solitary comes out. Some inmates, they disappear. They say it's transfers discipline medical issues. But the truth? They use the old passages to move people, to isolate them off the record, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for years. Anyone who files complaints, anyone who pushes too hard, they get filtered out." Cross's breath hitched as the puzzle pieces slammed together. "Filtered," like the caller said. Marcus nodded. "They watch through the vents, through those crawl cameras. They listen to everything." He pointed upward. Cross followed his gesture, and that's when she saw it. A tiny mechanical device clung to the corner of the ceiling, its lens cracked but still faintly blinking. The same model she'd seen in the footage, the same pattern of light. Someone was watching them right now. She raised her hand slowly. "Marcus, we need to get you out of here." He took one shaky step forward. then froze as footsteps echoed from behind the wall they had opened. Cross spun around, weapon raised. The footsteps grew louder, sharper, unmistakably urgent. More than one person. Heavy boots. Trained. Cole's voice trembled. "Detective, they're coming." Cross grabbed Marcus's arm. "Move!" They sprinted back through the passage as the footsteps closed in. Shadows spilled into the tunnel behind them. Someone shouted for them to stop. Cross didn't look back. They burst out into the hidden chamber, nearly colliding with the maintenance crew. Cross slammed the emergency lockdown button on the wall. Heavy steel shutters crashed down, sealing the secret passage. Silence swallowed the room. Marcus collapsed against the wall, gasping. The foreman stared at him like he'd seen a ghost. Warden Cole leaned against a beam, defeated, finally understanding the system he protected was far darker than he imagined. Cross stepped forward, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "This ends now," she said. "The investigations, the cover-ups, the disappearances, everything." And for the first time since she entered Rockford, the truth began to feel real, dangerous, fragile, but real. She turned the camera above the chamber doorway, knowing someone was on the other side watching. Solitary confinement was never just punishment, she said softly. It was a perfect place to hide what no one wanted to see. Then she looked down at Marcus, alive, trembling, but free. And now the world is going to hear it. If the story was good, hit like, comment, and subscribe.